Hey, seventh graders, it's Miss Kaken. Hope you guys are having a good Sunday evening, maybe watching the Chiefs game. All right, well, for Monday, we are going to go over our assignments. So let's do this. All right, so you'll need to go into the Google Classroom and open up our nonfiction narrative writing. So you're going to click on this assignment right here, okay, and open it up. And we did our brainstorming already, which was just answering 10 questions. Then we took all those ideas and picked the best one. And then we focused our topic and we wrote a main idea to keep us focused. And then we worked on our characters, describing them, developing them. Okay, and then after that, we went into our timeline and just basically outlined how our story was going to go. Again, our story is about um, when one generation influences another generation, and it could be about you or somebody you know. All right, so then you outlined it. All right, so you need to go down to the third step, which is drafting. Okay, that's where we're at. So have this open while we go through your, while have this open while we go through our PowerPoint. Great, thank you, thank you. All right, so let's do this. All right, so this is our first day of drafting. And you will use your pre-writing activities to create a draft. So you will draft your introduction today, body, and conclusion. And drafting is the third step in the writing process. So you'll be using your main idea statement, character chart, and timeline to create a draft for your intro, body, and conclusion. Resolution. Again, what this story is supposed to be about is an unexpected event that shows how a person can influence somebody from a different generation. All right, so let's roll. Before we start on our draft, I want to talk to you guys about finding your voice. So if you would, you can look at this chart here. So voice is a writer's distinctive style. Is referred to voice, and it can be influenced by word choice, sentence structure, the way the author constructs a sentence, and tone, the writer's attitude toward his or her subject. Developing a unique voice can take time. These tips and activities will help you get started. So this is a chart from examples from our launch text Grounded. So when it comes to word choice, the author used singing at the top of her lungs, just beginning to darken with blue clouds against a darker blue sky. She also used varied sentence structure and dialogue. We took off. She drove slowly, maybe too slowly. Bueno, she said with a nod. And then reflective, genuine tone. But how could I say any of this? I was so relieved I could have cried. So this is how the author used her voice to really make her story hers. So, as you draft your nonfiction narrative, think of ways in which you can develop your voice. To do so, ask yourself questions such as, what should the tone of my narrative be? What emotions do I want the audience to experience? And how can I make my personality as narrator more authentic? Also, pay close attention to your sentence structures and strive to mimic real speech patterns. When writing from the first person point of view, you might be inclined to begin many of your sentences with the pronoun I, which will create a repetitive, dull pattern. The chart provides strategies to help you avoid repetitive sentence beginnings and create variety. All right, so let's look at our box here. So originally it said, I was surprised to see my sister on the stage. One of their strategy tips is start your sentence with a word that describes your emotion or mood. So they took this sentence, They said, startled, I noticed the familiar figure of my sister on the stage. So they took that emotion um, mood word and they started the sentence that way. All right, let's see how else we can do this. I rushed to congratulate her after the play ended. Move to another part of the sentence to the beginning. After the play ended, I rushed to congratulate her. So see, they move the ending of the sentence to the beginning. So you're not just saying I. All right, last one. I said her portrayal of the character was so realistic, I forgot she was my sister. Start with a real quotation instead of writing that someone said something. Great job, I exclaimed. You really made me believe you were Alice. Okay, so when you go to write, try not to start every sentence with the word I. Okay? All right, so as you start writing your first draft, refer to your timeline as you write your first draft. As you draft your narrative, refer to the elements of nonfiction narrative writing, which we went over last week. Also, use your pre-writing planning notes, including your character description chart. Okay? So you're going to use everything we've been working on to help you with your writing. Awesome sauce. All right, so we are going to start with our introduction draft. So, introduction. We're going to start our introduction for our story. Look below at the introduction in the model story, Grounded. Growing up, I really didn't know my grandmother. She was a private person and didn't talk about her past much, but I know she had one. She once told me that before she got married, she was a backup singer in a band that I had actually heard of, but that's all she would say about it, no matter how often I prodded. El Pasado es El Pasado. Sorry, El Pasado is El Pasado, she told me. The past is the past. To me, she talked in Spanish. I talked back in English. We understood each other. So the questions are, what did you notice about how they started their narrative? What did you like or dislike about it? Could you use this guide to guide your introduction for your story? How do you think you'll start your introduction? So those are the questions that you'll need to answer. So first and foremost, notice that, they're setting up their story. They're talking about, their characters, and they're not just saying, one day I did this. Okay, make sure it's interesting. All right, so if you want, you can start very similarly to this. This is why it's a mentor text. Okay. All right, I know this looks like a lot. It's okay. All right, body draft rising actions. All right, find that part on your form. Okay. We're going to start drafting our rising actions for our story. Look below the rising actions in this model story, Grounded. Okay, again, this is a model story, so you're using it to help you with your writing. All right, the thing I remember most about Grandma Sophia was how much she loved driving, especially since she came to live with us. She had a 1960s red Chevy Impala convertible that was all her own, a remnant of her band days. She loved driving with the top down, the radio blasting, singing at the top of her lungs when a good song came on. Driving was her independence, her freedom. My parents, however, were concerned that she was getting too old to drive around by herself. One night I overheard them. She's okay for now, but how long before she can't manage? I'll speak to her tomorrow. I felt sick at the thought of Grandma giving up her car. I knew what driving meant to her. I knew that without her wheels, she'd feel ordinary. Just another grandma hovering in Wise. Sometimes it felt like Grandma and I were on the sidelines and my parents were in the middle, dragging us toward the center, where we did not want to be. I was often grounded for the smallest things. I didn't really mind under normal circumstances. All right, so these are these rising actions, okay? So when you go back to look at your timeline, these are these rising actions, okay? So look at your timeline and see what your rising actions are. Notice how the author includes dialogue. You need to include dialogue in your story. So make sure that you are punctuating your dialogue correctly. Again, please use this as a model. All right, climax. This is also what's called the turning point, okay? So everything after the climax changes, all right? So we're gonna look at the model Grounded again. It says, at that moment, I wouldn't have minded getting out and going back home. I felt bad about Grandma. I felt bad about disobeying my parents. But how could I say any of this? So this is at that point when our narrator completely changes. Okay? She feels bad. So she has completely changed at this point. And everything after that is the following action because it's all changing. Okay? All right, next up, following actions. So let's look at this. It says, we took off. She drove slowly, maybe too slowly, but we didn't get very far. Suddenly, she pulled over and stopped the car. We must have been sitting in that car for 5 minutes, which is a long time if you're sitting in a car not talking. I couldn't ask her if she stopped because she was nervous about driving, and I couldn't ask if she stopped because she knew I was grounded. So notice things are starting to kind of wrap up in the following actions, but also if you notice back at the story, the climax and the following actions are very close to the end of the story. Okay, your climax should not happen in the middle of your story. Okay, so the climax and the following actions are toward the end of the story. Okay, so you're going to start wrapping things up in your story during your following actions. All right, and the resolution is how your story is going to be solved. It says, finally she turned to me. Regresamos? Shall we turn back? Sure, I replied. I was so relieved I could have cried. Bueno, she said with a nod. She started the car and turned on the radio. It was a song we both knew by heart, but it was clear that Grandma and I could still learn a lot from each other. Okay, so notice at the end of the resolution, all of it's kind of tied up, and it includes how they learned from each other. All right, so for you guys, looking back, all right, so make sure that you use your timeline to help you, okay? Just like the timeline for the story Grounded, use that to help you with your intro, so your exposition, your rising action, your climax, your falling actions, your resolution, okay? All right, and use your character description to help you. Make sure you stay true to your topic sentence. You do not include your topic sentence. Do not include your topic sentence. Remember, this is a story, not an essay, okay? And then do use all of this information to help you with the beginning of your draft. So for today, the only thing you are working on, okay, it's right here. Your introduction, so answer these questions right here. Your rising actions, answer these questions right here. Your climax, answer these questions right here. Your falling actions, answer the questions right here. And your resolution, answer these questions right here. You can stop there. Do not go on to transitions because we'll be handling transitions on Tuesday. Please note, Tuesday we are creating a rough draft of our entire story. So be prepared for that. All right, so make sure you start on these tasks and then we will go over them in cohort. Yay! All right, go Chiefs!